My name is Tommy Van Arsdale. I'm the drummer of Dust Fighters, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
Are you satisfied with the way it turned out, or are you sitting back and going, man, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I could have done that? Or is that something you always do?
Something I always do personally. I think Mocked Up Mercy, is part of like a 4-song EP that we're slowly releasing. So the first single, Old Town Curse, came out a couple of weeks ago. Mocked Up was last week, and then we have 2 more in the pipeline. So all 4 were written last year and recorded in the spring with Josh Roeder from Random Awesome Studios in Michigan. We had an amazing time with him. He really helped us to kind of bring out some of the aspects of our playing that we really love to feel like when we're playing live, and also when we're playing in our own home studio. So just like power and rawness, and just kind of like accentuating parts of the music that are a little bit harder or more nuanced. So we're totally stoked on how these came out. I mean, they just sound nice and big and like aggressive and fucking kick ass.
Very aggressive. Yes, that's on the list.
Yeah, so we're psyched about that. But just in terms of like performance, man, I always walk away from like every show or every studio session, and I'm like, man, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I would have like swapped this fill out or something. I think like a lot of artists have that sort of
right. I wish
way
I
of like
could
looking back. Yeah, and it's just a product of like evolving. Like it's tough to release things, like put it out. So.
Right. But then once it's out there, it becomes sort of just like a time capsule of that time, that period of time or whatever. And then you just move on. And I guess you look back at it fondness whether you wanted to do something different or not.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the way we look at like the Guild album, like our first full length it was a nice like way to capture that moment in time of like who we were as a band and individual artists, and like what we were thinking about and feeling during that time. And so, yeah, you can always like overanalyze stuff, but I think you're right. It's important to just be like, that's what we were feeling, glad to put it down and get it out there and move on and keep like learning and evolving.
You seem like a nice guy. I mean, we've talked before, but what are you so pissed at? Why so pissed?
I mean, there's like, look around. There's a lot. A lot of our music, it's just like all of our backgrounds are like, I mean, me and Kinsley, the front man, kind of like punk background. And I would say like Miller is definitely, and Brian, like more metal. Like we all converge on metal for sure, and like post-hardcore, hardcore music. So like that sort of like aggressive, like in your face style of writing and performing is like just super fun, if anything else. But yeah, there's tons to get like pissed off at in the world. But a lot of our music, I wish Kinsley were here to speak to some lyrics, but it really just has to do with like self-reflection and like anxiety and grief, and also like overcoming that stuff too, right? So it's like, among like all of the chaos and like frustrations and shit to get pissed off in the world, like, what do you do with that? Like what do you do to sort of like ask for forgiveness, or like try like come together as people? And like 2 of the members of the band have kids, so it's like, how do you raise children in a world where things just don't seem to add up? So I like to think of our music as either like being really angry musically and bright lyrically, or like the opposite of that.
I think music, and maybe even the hardcore sort of genre, have always had a way of like shining a mirror back on society at the time anyway, right? I mean, there's always been sort of that underground, hey, look at this kind of thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Now it's like, I mean, we're looking at just talking about like where we are in our own lives and how we, can navigate some really tough stuff that's happening in the world, like politically, socially, and whatnot. I think like music just kind of naturally lends to like wanting to fight back at stuff that doesn't quite make sense, you know. So as artists, like that's part of the job. It just like seeps in all the time. So you're right.
You know, you saw it with the 60s and the protest stuff in the 70s, and you know, it wasn't metal, but it doesn't matter. It was still like, hey, we're shining the light on back onto society and saying, you know, here's where you're fucked up.
It's impossible not to, I think, right? Because that like you wake up every day and you feel a certain way, and a lot of that just has to do with like the framework in which we find ourselves, you know. But that's where I think like you know, our first full length was called Guilt. Our EP was called Shame. You know, the songs that are coming out like Mocked Up Mercy, Old Town Curse, you know, the other two definitely like we don't mince words for sure.
When you guys are writing, then, so are you writing with any sense of responsibility to your listeners? You know, with
Oh,
lyrics.
sure. Yeah, I think like lyrically, Kinsley definitely starts from a point of like a really personal point of looking at himself in his life and kind of what's going on, what's happened to him in his past, and where he's come from. Very reflective, and that definitely comes through with songs that have to do with overcoming addiction and using his family, his job, the band, and different aspects of friends and family to sort of overcome those things. So definitely starts from a place like that. And then as we bring music, like instrumentation to the table, and he brings lyrics to the table, it all kind of melds into what we think is the best way for us to express ourselves. And a lot of that is definitely like thinking about palatability, not necessarily putting that in the forefront, but our music is tough to figure out exactly what community it fits in. I mean, this is something we've been dealing with for a while, so it's not like as manic to be put in the vein as like post-hardcore. It's not as straightforward to just be like hard rock. It's not, I guess, like aggressive with the drums to be considered metal. You know, and it's not really like melodic enough to be grunge. So I don't know if you were to like take sort of the fringe elements and also like the quintessential elements of a lot of those genres and put them together, it might be us. So like the palatability thing is just like, where do we fall? You know, like who exactly would be listening to this music? And so obviously like we love breakdowns, we love like codas. And so we want to make sure that shit's catchy and danceable. And so to that extent, we're thinking of an audience for sure.
Even from the music standpoint, are you writing like how the song is going to come across on stage? It's a great spot for a breakdown, or a great spot for us, whatever those crazy kicks the kids do, or are you just writing a song for the song's sake and then just seeing what happens?
But I think both for sure. Yeah. And oftentimes we'll have like a breakdown riff or like an iteration of a breakdown. And we're like, okay, this would be really awesome. Like, where could we put this that would make sense? And then sometimes just honestly, like it'll just reveal itself. You know, like there's an old adage I really like, that's when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So sometimes you're just like in the process, and all of a sudden, like that's it. Like that's where this part needs to go. Or it'll be like, this needs a blank, like a breakdown or like a pre-chorus or something. So a lot of the times we just come with ideas and let the music sort of dictate what we do next, right? But to kind of go back to earlier, like we know it's finished when we're comfortable. I don't think we ever are just like, this is it. You know, it's just a state where it's just like, all right, I think this is like the point in which we can walk away and we should work on something else.
Okay. I'm going to divert just because it's trying to be crazy. You mentioned that Alice in Chains a little bit ago. One of the never-ending conversations on this show is Alice in Chains metal? Would you define them as metal?
Yeah, I would say there are elements of metal for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I don't think you could really pin them or anyone else down by like a song or an album. So for sure, yeah, they're metal, and I would say, you know.
Okay. Fair enough. So you guys all have regular jobs, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What does this look like out on the road then? I know you work at Akuma's, right?
I did, yeah, for a long time. I was there for about 7 years. I recently left them, trying to figure out my next move. I've been in hospitality for over a decade though. So but yeah, all of us have full-time day jobs. And as I mentioned, Nick Kinsley and Brian have kids.
Right.
So yeah, we all have a lot of stuff on our plates. And so the good thing is like when we do practice, which is at least, once a week or so together as a band, if not more. It's kind of like it is cathartic. It's like our way to be creative and also just hang out. I mean, we're all like incredibly great friends. And then when it's time to go on the road, that does take a lot of planning. So it's not just like when I was, when we were in our teens or early 20s and you could just say like, let's just hit the road and like pick a bunch of places, and just go play or hit up friends, sleep on couches. I mean, we still do that for sure, but there's a lot more like intentionality behind it, which is kind of cool in a way because it gets us like more in the mindset of like, all right, let's plan a route. Let's like get posters designed. Let's like sort of figure out how we want to promote this, where we want to play, who we can reach out to, and so it takes on more of a form of like more of like a put together sort of scenario, rather than just like punk rock, like fuck it, drive all night, drink it all day, like sort of thing. But yeah, we're still able to do it and have an absolute blast. But it's what we have to do. There's no other option,
The music business has changed, but I think what's really cool is, especially in the heavier music, I think you'll find that you don't really age out or time out. You can still
Yeah.
do this. And then once the kids are off and running, I mean, I still talk to people that are 50s and 60s and 70s still doing this or doing it again with renewed vigor.
Yeah.
Still out there making relevant music. And I think that's great.
For sure. And like, as you said, the landscape is changing. So it's not like we have to be intimidated to commit to like a 1 month or 3 month, whatever tour. Like we could shoot out for a few days and hit the West Coast or the East Coast or Midwest or whatever, Southeast, it doesn't matter. So like we just try to think more creatively of like, okay, since we can't do like big consolidated tours, like how can we sort of hit the road for 3 shows back to back to back, once every month or once every other month. And that's way more doable. And it's honestly way more fun because you just look forward to that sort of string of shows. You hit it, boom, 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 come back, do some writing, practicing, recording, and then go and do it again. So I actually prefer that. And that's kind of like where we're seeing recordings go as well, like EP releases, single releases, happening almost year round versus a concentrated effort on like a longer process of like a full length. So it kind of mirrors like what we're doing on the road, I guess.
Nobody attention spans anymore, that's for sure.
It's too much, man.
Are you going to be doing then the single route, like you just said? You're going to be doing a single every 6 weeks or something like that with videos, or?
Yeah, I mean, like that's sort of the general plan for sure. The 2 singles we have out, we're super proud of, and the next 2, same thing. So it's like lyric videos, music videos, doing stuff like this, like looping back with our friends and talking to them about the music. And then like we want to get back in the studio and do 4 more after these are released.
Really?
Yeah. So we're already, I mean, we already could go in and record probably 4. We've got a couple more on the docket, but that's the cool thing about this sort of like release schedule is it like spaces enough time between singles to like get excited about it and talk about it and like release stuff, but also in that process we're still writing and thinking and planning recording. And so like we just played a show at Reggie's last week, which was a lot of fun. Like I love that venue. And so we played all 4 new songs. And then tonight actually we're practicing and recording some content and continuing to write. And so it's like we just like kind of get excited. It's like 1 week the focus is writing, the next week it's practicing for a gig, the next week it'll be recording. So that it's like it never ends, rather than like spending all this time focusing on like getting a full length together and then a bunch of time recording that and then a bunch of time touring on that. It's just not, it's not how like we can make it work right now. So,
No, I see a lot of people doing that, and I think that's sort of a new way of a business model too for people that want to stay.
Yeah, right on, man.
So what's next for Dust Biters?
Yeah, great question. So we're got the next 2 singles coming out in a couple weeks, which is exciting. So definitely like check those out. And then writing and recording. That's like really where we see ourselves spending the winter. Is digging deep on this next batch and 2 batches of songs. And Nick Kinsley like loves writing stuff. He absolutely loves that process. And so we have like this group thread right now that's just like overflowing with lyrics and like little voice memos and like video clips of like riffs and like guitar riffs, bass riff, and me just sitting behind the kit like playing some stupid thing. And like, so it really is like the next I would say couple months of like sifting through that, synthesizing the good stuff, and like putting more music together. That's kind of the deal. And it's cold as shit in Chicago, like January, February, March. So it's a great time for us to like dig our heels in and write. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for thinking.
Thanks, babe.
Cheers.
Hey everyone, this is Bjorn from Soulwork, and this is Brutally Delicious.
Hey there, heavy metal maniacs and kitchen crusaders. I'm Bruce Moore, the host of the Brutally Delicious podcast, where we whisk up a blend of metal and food to quench even the most discriminate tastes. Have you ever wondered what your favorite metal musician chows down on before they hit the stage to melt your face off? Well, look no further. Here at the Brutally Delicious podcast, we have cooking segments so brutal they'll make your oven want to headbang. From beefy, bodacious burgers to spicy, succulent salmon, to kickin' caliente cauliflower, and more. We mix metal and culinary creations, resulting in a feast for the senses.
But wait, there's more.
Hey, this is Michael Monroe. Brutally Delicious. Isn't that beautiful? See you down the road.
Each week, I meet with the mammoths of metal for interviews that are spicier than a Carolina Reaper. Get the latest on their upcoming shows, behind-the-scenes stories, and if we're lucky enough, maybe they'll share a secret family recipe or two with us. You'll also want to check out our weekly album and show reviews, where we dice, slice, and serve up our unique takes on the latest metal releases. So grab your leather apron, crank the volume to 11, and subscribe to the Brutally Delicious podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It's sure to be a hell of a time.
Oh, hey there. It's Tim from Protest the Hero. Now that you've seen my junk, I'm going to show you how to make a pizza. And you're watching Brutally Delicious.
What's up, everybody? Max Cavalera, Soulfly, and you listen to Brutally Delicious podcast. Stay metal, motherfuckers.
From summer to